So, hello and welcome to another one of these monthly lives that I've been doing with Ukrainian teachers of English, almost since the start of Russia's brutal full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Today, I'm actually going to be talking to, for the first time, someone that I've already done a live with, a woman from Odesa called Anna Matiienko-Silnytska. We spoke back in April, I think, when Anna talked about having survived a Russian terror attack on a tennis court where her kids were playing tennis, and she gave a very, very powerful and very harrowing account of what it's like to be caught up in a terror attack like that. As some of you may remember, that particular live got cut short for various reasons. So we're hoping to just finish off what we'd intended to talk about then. I've just seen Anna asking to join, so let me just allow her to join. 1 second. Yeah, hoping she'll be with us in a minute. Let's see. Being in Odessa, the power has been very erratic recently, but there she is.
Hello there.
Hey, Anne.
So nice to see you. Fingers crossed there will be no power cut today.
Oh, I know. How are you?
Frankly speaking, so trying to be all right, trying to cope with everything that we have here. Yes, thank you very much. Thank you for having me for the second time.
You're welcome.
It's such an honor for me. Thank you.
You've got your power back and everything now, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got it. Yes. Nobody knows for how long, but we hope that it will last for some time.
Okay. Yeah. And water, electricity, everything?
Yeah, now we have it. Yes. But after the latest huge shelling that was committed on our infrastructure, we probably sat without water for 2 days and without electricity for 3 days. So at least I live in the private house where we have the generator, the battery that is called EcoFlow, probably you know it, and we can survive somehow. But I have no idea how people who live in the blocks of flats, how they survive, especially those who have little children, yeah, who need to cook. Yes, then moreover, the weather is not perfect now, so it is a little bit colder. It's getting colder every day. So people are trying to cope, are trying to survive in this difficult situation.
And I guess yeah, Odessa is one of the warmer places as well, because when I was recently in Ukraine, yeah, I came up through Odessa, and the first night I was in Odessa, it was quite warm. And by the time I got on to Kyiv, it was much colder. Like I noticed the temperature drop as you kind of moved away from the Black Sea. So, you know.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that we now, I mean, not only people from Odessa, but people from all Ukraine, we can't enjoy the proper winter weather now. I mean, enjoy it to the fullest, because when it's snowing, the first thing that comes to our mind is, how are they doing now? How are the soldiers? How do they? How is it possible for them to survive in these conditions? Yeah. So I can't enjoy the snow for 3 years already. Yes, because of that. Yes, I can't enjoy this Christmas season because I know that it's cold in Odessa, and I can imagine how cold it is in the east of Ukraine. So it's terrible. Yeah.
It's funny because I think there are lots of little psychological things like the inability to enjoy Christmas weather that you never hear talked about when people talk about what it's like to live through a war, or what it's like to kind of, you know, be in a country. Oh, sorry, I don't know why it's done that. What it's like to be in a country where you're under attack all the time. You know, it's all those little things like the inability to just basically enjoy a bit of Christmassy weather, yeah?
Yeah.
Because all the time you're having to think about what the troops are going through, and yeah.
And the same happens in summer. We can't enjoy the heat because we think about our soldiers who are fighting, who have to carry this heavy armor on them, and how they cope with that. It's absolutely unbearable. So the situation in which our soldiers are now, it's not, I don't know how to describe it. What is better, the heat or the cold? I think both of them absolutely, absolutely awful.
Yeah. And I guess one of the things that's happened, I have some other things I'm going to talk to you about in a
Yeah,
minute, but curious about
yeah,
this. One of the things that's happened over the last sort of 10 days, say, I know that there was a huge Russian attack last Sunday, I think, yeah?
yeah.
And I know that, officially this was in response to Biden finally saying that ATACMS, the American provided missiles, could be used in the Kursk Oblast. And it seems like they've been used actually in a wider range. And since then, you've had Keir Starmer coming out saying that Ukraine can use Storm Shadows. And I saw yesterday the French have come out and said that you can use French provided long distance missiles to hit targets inside Russia. And one of the things that's happened since then is Putin has altered the Russian nuclear doctrine.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's been really interesting for me here in the UK because I've been shocked by how many people I know suddenly start panicking, kind of saying like, "Oh my God, World War Three's coming. World War, just we have to let Ukraine lose. We have to let Ukraine lose because I don't want nuclear war." And I mean, to me, this seems like an insane thing to believe because if Russia thinks it can work like this, it will just keep doing the same thing over and over and over again. And, then it will say, I'm going to take Moldova, or we're going to take the Baltics, or we're going to take Poland. Don't try and stop us, or there'll be nuclear war. And I was wondering what you feel people inside Ukraine feel when they hear these threats of nuclear, changes to the nuclear doctrine, the idea of the provoking nuclear war through Western escalation. How do Ukrainians process this?
So I can say that personally, I do not see bigger threat because we have had the same threat for at least more than 1,000 days.
Yeah,
And has anything changed for us? I think the threat of nuclear war was possible even at the very beginning of this war. So
yeah,
I don't know how it's going. Sometimes, I just think that I'm happy that I'm not responsible. I'm not a diplomat. I'm not a member of any diplomatic mission. And it's not me who are to decide how to cope with this, how to sign something. Yes, what I mean, whether we acknowledge it or not, but maybe I will express this unpopular opinion, but every war and every military conflict is finished with signing some kind of the peace treaty. Yeah. And but the question in our case is on which conditions it's going to be
yeah,
signed. Yes. And we are trying to do everything possible to create the positive conditions for ourselves. Yes, our armed forces are trying hard. They're doing their best. They really create some possible and even impossible things. They do impossible, really, in order to save our territories, our nation, even the future of our children. Yeah, I know it might sound a little bit strange, but that's what they're doing.
yeah, no,
And yeah, so the nuclear war, even if it happens, so it's inevitable in any case. Yes, can we influence it or not? Now, can I personally influence the threat of nuclear war? I'm not sure. So, but the threat of being killed but by any missile, it doesn't matter whether it's nuclear, whether it weighs 5 tons. As far as I remember, the one that hit Dnipro
yeah,
on
the
Tuesday, yes, Tuesday
intercontinental.
or Wednesday. Yeah, so it was huge. So the chances to be killed by this bomb are the same as being killed by a little drone flying above the house,
Yeah,
right? So for people who stayed in Ukraine, the threat of nuclear war it started from the very beginning.
Yeah.
Yes, people from the Western countries, they do not understand, they do not realize the possible threats. Yes, we understand that they will not stop in Ukraine, they will go further. Yes, so you have visited Odessa, you
Yeah.
have visited Kiev now, and probably that gave you the huge impression, I'm sure, that you have seen it from
Yeah.
inside.
Yeah.
It's not only the talks, it's not what you see on the news, but you've seen the situation from the inside.
Yeah. 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 And I mean, as soon as we arrived in Kiev, it was there was air raids going on, and you could hear the work of the air defense going on, and we were supposed to be staying inside during a raid, but we went up to the venue, and then we had to talk to all of the participants at the conference about whether people wanted to hide or whether you wanted to continue. And you realize that that's just the normal, everyday backdrop of people's lives. And I mean, I was surprised myself how quickly I kind of adapted to just, I'm going to go about what I planned to go about today, because this is what I planned to do, so this is what I'm going to do. I don't want anyone to stop me doing this, and I understand very quickly how you get into that kind of position of just going about your day as best you can, given all the madness that's going on around you.
Yeah. So we have to run to the bomb shelter every day for several times. But the problem in Odessa is that we do not have proper bomb shelters. It was built, our city was built on the underground tunnels.
Yeah.
So where should we hide? The parkings under the block of flats, it's not the best option, I think. Yeah, so we just stand somewhere where we have the double wall, yes, where we have at least two walls. It's better to have three, and we just pray and hope that today we are not going to die, and that's it. So, and gradually you adapt to that,
Yeah.
because you need to work, you need to live sometimes, yes, somehow. I need to create some proper childhood for my children.
Yeah.
Yes, because so that's my choice. That was my choice, to stay in Ukraine, to come back to Ukraine after half a year in London. I chose to return and to help my country from inside. Yeah.
And in terms of trying to ensure your kids have a proper childhood, well, what does that look like for you?
Of course, I dream I dream about the quiet nights, about the proper sleep, and then I dream about all my plans to be fulfilled. For example, when I buy the ticket to the theater, I want to watch the performance with my children till the end without running to the bomb
Yeah.
shelter. But nowadays, I can't be sure that we'll go somewhere and we'll watch it till the end. I can't, for example, go to the cinema with my children to watch the cartoon that was highly anticipated by them, because I know that probably this day is not very safe, and we will have to run away, and all these cinemas, all these places with lots of people, that they're very usually
Yeah.
targeted. Yes. So, and I just dream about the quiet, peaceful life where I can plan my vacation, I can plan my, I don't know, even the foreign foreign adventures,
Yeah.
because I'm a fan of adventures. And yes, but I can't do that. We always do everything on the spot nowadays. I want to go to my work and to be sure that I will see all my students, so they will come to the lessons. They will not stay at home because they're afraid of the alerts, they're afraid of the missiles and so on. I want proper live communication, not only online. So
Yeah.
that's, and as to the question of the proper childhood, um, my children are very communicative people, so they have lots of friends, and we are usually invited to different birthday parties, and I want just come to that birthday party, leave my children there, and go away to do my personal business. But I can't, because I feel that I'm responsible for my children, for other children who are around me, and I want to look after them, to be sure that they are unharmed, they are not injured in case of the alerts, in case of the attacks, and so on. So just the peaceful, common life. Yeah.
Yeah. So can we really begin today by just kind of rewinding 10 years? And I wanted to ask you a little bit about your memories of 2014 and the annexation of Crimea, and obviously what happened in Odessa around that time as well, because I know there was like the trade union building fire and everything. And I guess just for a quick kind of geography lesson for people who don't know Ukraine that well, Odessa is on the Black Sea, and Crimea is a kind of peninsula going out into the Black Sea, not that far from Odessa, really. And I don't know, like in the old days, how long it would have taken you to drive there or something, but it's not that far, no?
Not far. So it took us usually 5-6
Yeah.
hours to get that.
Okay.
Yeah. First of all, I'd like to mention that for me, Crimea is the symbol of my childhood. I do not remember whether I told you previously, but my father used to be an officer, and every year he got 24 days of vacation in some sanatorium in Crimea, and every summer we spent there. And I remember what a beautiful place it was. So we visited different towns, different cities, and I absolutely adored the sea. Though we have the same sea, but in Crimea, it's, I do not know why, but it's a little bit warmer than in Odessa.
Yeah.
And when my last visit to Crimea was in I think 12 or 2013. I do not remember exactly. I was there on the karate competition.
Okay.
So
I didn't know this about you.
yeah, yeah. So
Did you win?
of course. Yeah. So after that, I got my brown belt.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and I remember that when the annexation, when the green people came, I was at work at that day, and I was just listening to the people talking, and we were shocked because actually we didn't use social media so much at that period of time, and the information was not spread so fast. Yes, the same as happened with Odessa on the 2nd of May. Yes, yeah. So we got the information, but the pieces of information. And returning to the question of Crimea, I remember my feelings. I was shocked that I didn't want to believe. It was really difficult to believe that something like that, some kind of annexation is possible in our civilized world. How can it be? And when almost the same scenario was going to happen in Odessa, I was not exactly in Odessa. We were celebrating the 1st of May and the 2nd of May. We used to celebrate them like, yeah, it's post-Soviet tradition. And we were near Odessa. And I also remember my friends were calling me and telling me what was going on there. And I was shocked because it doesn't matter who was dying there, but people were dying. And it was always the tragedy. It's the huge tragedy. And nowadays, I understand that everything could have happened in absolutely another way.
Yeah.
Yes, thank God, everything happened.
Odessa could easily have gone the same way as Donetsk or Lugansk, or it could easily have been a sort of occupied, Odessan People's Republic.
Yeah, but people showed their resistance. Yes, people showed the power, the strength, that their ideas they didn't want. Nobody wanted it happen. I'm sure, but it happened. And nowadays, Russian propaganda, they always remind us about the 2nd of May, and they describe it like we are evil. Yes, like we are those who started that. So, but it's not true. Yeah. Oh, my friend texted me that the last visit of Crimea was in 2011.
Okay. Oh, they remember.
Yes, because she was with me. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's an interesting comment about people protecting Odessa then and Russian propaganda trying to find its way around. I think it's an
Exactly.
interesting thing you said about the fact that people weren't using social media that much back then, because I think what that allowed the Russians to do was to control the narrative that got out much more. And I think one thing that changed from 2014 to 2022 was Ukrainians became much more social media savvy. They understood the way that Russia was manipulating the information space. And I mean, even for me at that point in 2014, 2015, I kind of understood that Russia had carried out this illegal annexation. And I kind of understood something had happened in Donbass, but it was confusing and I wasn't clear of what was really happening. And I look back now and I think, well, that was part of the deliberate attempt to, you know, muddy the waters and make everything confusing and to spread 10 different versions of the story. And that classic kind of, I remember when MH17 was shot down and all of the kind of different stories that Russia was pumping out, you know, and you later realize that's just part of the way they operate, that they create 10 different stories and throw them out and see which people believe which story, and everyone kind of ends up believing, oh, who knows what's true, it's so confusing. I think now the fact that people are using social media much more, information travels much faster, there's a lot more video evidence of things. I know I was reading recently about the researchers who are trying to catalogue Russian war crimes, and they said so far they've got over 1 million different pieces of film footage that they're trying to kind of put together and work out. So, you know, there are hundreds of different films from Bucha, for example, yeah, and they try to sequence them all and work out the series of events. And I think that's a new thing that allows a much more forensic and detailed understanding of what's actually happened. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe somehow it changed the way the war
Yeah.
is held. Well, yes, because nowadays, as you said, the information is delivered much more faster. And now we know about all the atrocities that are committed by the Russian
Yeah.
soldiers. And you know, every time I come across some video or even a piece of news about our soldiers who were tortured
Yeah.
or even killed, I can't sleep after that. So I'm still not used to this kind of information, and I continue crying, crying, crying. And then in 2014, we were not exposed to such amount of information.
Yeah.
And as you said, that seemed confusing. Yeah, nowadays we see from inside what's happening.
Yeah.
Yes, we can call our friends who live in different parts of Ukraine, in different cities that were captured, unfortunately, and they describe the real situation to
Yeah.
us.
Yeah. So can I fast forward now to sort of 2022 and what's happened to you and your work and your teaching since February 24th? How has the full scale invasion kind of impacted your work and impacted your students?
Oh, I have a lot to tell you. Yes. Oh, so I remember when all the talks started and there were memes, there were jokes about the Russian invasion that was about to happen. We didn't want to believe in that. Of course, I didn't want to believe, but at the same time, I was thinking where it was better to sleep, where it was safer for my family to stay, or from which point in my house I was going to to shoot because I'm a good shooter. And nowadays I understand it was insane, so I should have prepared more probably. And I remember that night when we
Can I just
had.
stop? You said you're a good shooter.
Yeah, I am.
How, how, how did that happen?
Do you remember my father
Yeah,
was an officer?
yeah,
He
yeah, yeah, yeah.
trained me a lot. Yeah, so he trained me a
Your
lot.
dad
Yeah,
trained you to shoot, yeah?
yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
okay.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
do you have like weapons at home if you need them?
I will not tell you.
Okay. uh, Apologies for asking in that case.
Yeah. So, and I remember those first explosions, the first flashes of light that were coming from the window, and my husband told me it started to wake up. And I remember my words. I said, I'm already awoken. So there is no need to wake up. I am already. And he said, okay, it's time to run away. I said, no. At that period of time, I felt pretty safe at home. You know, the psychologists say that there are three types of reactions. The first one is to run, the second is to fight, and the third one is to freeze. So probably I'm that one who likes to be frozen, because I need to stop to analyze the situation and then to decide. And that day I had a day off, so I didn't have to go to the university, but I saw the hundreds of messages from my students who went to the university, and I can tell you the stories from my colleagues' words. Yes, when they arrived to the university and they saw the eyes of the students that were absolutely frightened, and nobody knew what to do. And my colleague asked her students, do you want to have the lesson? And they said, yes, kind of, because we need to focus on something else. And I remember she told me also about the student from Zaporizhia who told her that, my dear teacher, I'd like to have the lesson because I see the dead people outside my house. I want to change the focus. I do not want to look outside. I want to be in the process. And it is necessary to say that we had kind of the holidays for 2 weeks because everybody needed some time to recover, to get used to the new reality. And but anyway, we had kind of the meetings with the students. We needed to support them, and even if we were not able to make the proper lessons, we were to meet with the students to inspire them, to say that everything is going to be all right, and so on. And after 2 weeks of this kind of not very educational process, we returned to the educational one. Yes, we started lecturing again. So those who were able to escape, they did. Those who returned to their home cities, hometowns, they did. But there were still students who stayed in Odesa, and they were not able to come offline, of course, because the premises were closed, but the online lectures were still on. And nowadays we have this hybrid system. So we have the offline students, and at the same time we all have the laptops or tablets and iPads, whatever, or just the telephones, and we let the students who are somewhere not in Odessa to join our lessons. So, and I think that the function of the teacher, of any teacher in Ukraine now, it's more than just sharing the expertise.
Yeah.
Yes, we are all psychologists. We try to support our children and at the same time not to go insane by ourselves. Yes, it's really difficult to stay adequate after everything that we see every day, but we are trying hard. Yes, so we need to inspire, to show our students that they need to learn, they need to study anyway, whatever happens. And maybe you remember, you even posted these awful pictures of the dead bodies that were lying in Odessa.
Yeah.
That happened.
Recently, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that happened. It happened on Monday, and it took place not far from the dormitory where my students live. And I think I have a couple of gray hair more because I was waiting for my students answer me whether they were all right. And because I know who lives in the dormitory, and I could imagine what could happen to them. But thank God everyone was uninjured, though there were the shattered windows, the broken glass, and there were students who were writing their notes in front of the window, but they stayed unharmed. Thank God. Because, you know, my students, they're also like my children, and I'm sure that all the teachers feel the same, all the lecturers feel the same. So especially in these circumstances, we all have become closer to each other.
One of my students, who's also a teacher, was telling me this week that one of the hardest things for her is she teaches kids, and she was saying you're desperately trying to kind of maintain confidence and calmness when you're taking your kids down into the shelter or whatever, because she knows that if the kids see the adults in their life panicking and looking scared, it makes life much more difficult for the students. But she was also saying, like, sometimes she'll be teaching, she has to take her own students into the basement, trying to sort of go, don't worry, we'll only be down here half an hour, everything will be fine, we'll play a game when we're down there. And at the same time, she's kind of panicking, thinking, Jesus, where are my kids? I hope my kids are okay. What's happening to my own children? And I think just the kind of mental toll that must take on people is really huge. And it must be very, she told me this story where one of her students had a picture of a stray dog that had been injured by a blast that they'd been feeding near where she lived. And this student, they were 7 years old, showed it to the other kids in the class, and everyone suddenly burst out crying. And she was saying it was almost like the kids kind of were keeping in all of this trauma that they couldn't talk about and couldn't discuss. And when they saw the picture of the dog, it was like, okay, now we're allowed to cry about something.
Yeah. So
and you know,
the emotions went out.
Yeah.
And the situation that you described, it's exactly what I feel every time when I shout at my students to run faster to the bomb shelter, because sometimes I have the lessons where there are 50, 60, and even 70 persons, students, and I shout, please, faster, faster. But at the same time, I'm thinking about my children. Yes, one of them is in the kindergarten, the second one is at school. So, but I'm sure that my children are running faster than anyone, because they had that awful traumatic experience, and now they do not wait for anyone, they just run. And sometimes my students are too slow and they do not understand how it is important to run faster. And staying near the window, it's not an option at all.
And so since 2022, after your kind of 2-week break, you've been working face to face still, mostly with the blended component going on, or how have you been doing it?
That was the meeting with the students and with the administration of our university, where it was decided that it's better to transfer all the educational process online. And we finished that term online. Then the next one, the term that started in September 2022, it also started online. For half a year, we were teaching online. And in 2023, we returned offline. For those who wanted to return into the university, into the premises, it was absolutely okay for them. But at the same time, we were teaching, and we are still teaching online students.
Okay.
So we are doing that at the same time. Yeah.
Okay. And have you found that the lessons themselves that you're teaching have changed as a result of the ongoing war? I mean, like, does it encroach upon the things people talk about, or does it come up in different ways, or how does it work in terms of actually just the normal mechanics of teaching every day and the things that come up in the classrooms?
Everything changed, because it's impossible to stay unemotional when something happened. Or, for example, I personally try not to touch any family matters, because I do not know what could have happened to my students. So I try to omit these topics. Then everything that is connected with our neighbor country, yes, I try not to express my anger. I'm trying, but I'm not every time successful. Though, anyway, sometimes the students want to discuss some issues, and I can't refuse doing that. Yeah, so I have to do that. I need to support them. For example, if I see that my student is sitting with a blank face and I feel that something happened.
Yeah.
Recently, we also had the student who lost her relative at the war. And how could I pretend that nothing happened? It's impossible.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
in this
Yeah.
case, we always need to give time for the students, for the pupils to recover. Everybody needs time. Even the teachers need time to recover. Yes, we are not robots. We
Yeah.
also have feelings, and it's impossible to just pretend that everything is all right. Just shake off the debris that we have and let's go to work. Sometimes it's impossible, but we are trying to do that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. One of
Yeah,
my
we are
one
all trying.
one of my students told me last week that she came home from the conference that she attended, the one I did in Kiev recently, and found that her husband had basically used the time she was away to sign up and go and join the special forces, and that he'd kind of deliberately done it while she wasn't there because he knew that she would disagree with it, and the kind of whole massively mixed range of emotions that created in her, and that sort of feeling of why didn't you tell me, mixed with anger, mixed with pride, mixed with fear.
Yeah.
And you know, I know I began by asking you how are you, and I know I know that it's a kind of, it's an almost impossible question to answer for a lot of people these days,
Yeah.
and you know, you still feel like you have to ask how people are.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
sometimes when you ask how people are, you have to deal with all the stories that are then going to come out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what helps me, for example, how can I help any situation? I have this kind of rule: by helping others, you help yourself.
Yeah.
So, and when the war started, I think that first days of shock, real shock, were followed by this huge desire to help, to do
Yeah.
what was possible, what
Yeah.
I could do.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the first weeks that were holidays, I started translating the instructions for the weapons, for the Western weapons that were coming to Ukraine, and I translated. I'm not allowed to say how many, but that I felt that I was doing
Yeah.
something. Yeah, apart from the translation work, I also try to donate blood because whenever my health permits me to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so not on very regular basis, but I'm trying to do that because I know that it is important. Not everyone can do that, but I can. Why shouldn't I do that? Then it's not a secret that everyone, especially the teachers, are they live on a tight budget. Nevertheless, we continue to donate. I know, for example, my students who are fighting, who are on the front line, and whenever I have this opportunity, I send money to them.
Yeah.
And I know that they need that, so I can help them this way. I
Yeah.
can't go and fight now because I have little children, and probably I'm useless in fighting. But I can do what I am meant to do. As on this educational field, I'm trying to work for my country here, and to raise up the people who love their country, who believe in their country, and who will then grow other people who will love their country.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Well, I remember one of my students saying about a year ago when we were talking about all of this, and I said, "How do you cope?" And she said, "Action is the enemy of despair."
great,
And
great
it
work.
really stuck with me. It's just like, you know, when you're feeling this kind of desperation and despair and depression, do something, you know, to
Just
take some action, do what you can.
everybody
And
can do something.
exactly.
That's
And I think that's a very powerful thing to always bear in mind. Action is the enemy of despair.
yes, yes. And Ukrainians know better than anyone that union, we have the power, we have the strength. And when we are united, when we do something together, we'll win. Yes. Uh, Probably it sounds a little bit too high and too optimistic, but we have
Not
no
at all.
other option.
Not at all. I mean, I think another thing I've learned from the Ukrainians I work with is this kind of power of
Yeah.
belief. And I think it's, as you said, it's like you have no other options, whereas Russia has the option. I was something you said earlier that I actually disagreed with, which was every war ends with treaties. I mean, it actually doesn't, because a lot of wars end with one side accepting defeat and
Yeah.
withdrawing troops.
Yeah.
So the Soviet invasion of
What is
Afghanistan.
better? Yes, what is better in this case? And to have the long conflict, it's not an option for Ukraine as well, because we do not have so many people left here, right? So I'm happy not to be the person who will decide what to
Yeah.
do with that. But everything that depends on me, I'm trying to do that properly. I'm trying to work hard. Yeah.
I did read, I was reading this morning about how the last 3 months the Russians have been losing people at about 100% greater rate than they're recruiting. And it's now got to the stage where they're recruiting people from Yemen, from, they're bringing the North Koreans
North
in.
Korean.
They've basically run out of anyone inside the country who was going to go and fight has already signed up and probably died, or gone home injured. And I think, obviously it's going to hit both people, but I guess for Russians, the only reason to go and fight is money, unless they're crazy Z patriots. And I think all those guys have already been fighting.
Yeah.
For Ukraine, it's
It's
you have
the
no other
question
option.
of the future
Yeah,
for Ukraine. We have another aim. We are here to protect ourselves. We didn't invade anyone, yes, as they did. And as you said, the power that pushes them is only money.
yeah,
I do not see other reasons. So do they really believe that they protect some idea, some high idea about the creating the second Soviet Union? I think they do not have this kind of ideas. They just fight for monies. And Russian government, they do not count their people because they know that there are a lot of them. And in our case, every life matters, every person matters. And for us, every child who is dead, who is killed by the missile, by the drone, it's the personal tragedy of every Ukrainian mother. Yeah, the same as, so I always think about those mothers who lose their children. Yeah, it's it's very difficult to describe the real emotions. It's very difficult, and definitely we will not forgive. And I will raise my children, and when they are grown up, when they recover from all the trauma, I will be able to tell them everything that I have in my head, everything, so they will never consider them their friends or brothers.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
because they are not. They are not.
So, can I ask you about I guess how you're feeling about what's coming up with America and with Trump and with, you know, the 24-hour solution to the war that Trump boasts he's going to somehow manage, and the kind of increasing talk about peace deals. How are you feeling, and what do you think the general feeling is about all of that?
I wish, I wish everything would be fast. So during the election in the USA, it was obvious for me that any any candidate who wins was not the best option for
Yeah,
Ukraine. And it was only the matter of time. And we, as you said, we have only hope and belief that somehow it will be solved. Something, I do not believe Trump, really.
Yeah.
I do not believe in everything that he says. And
I think that's very wise, I think.
yes, yes. But in terms of Ukraine, so it's very difficult to predict. But the only thing that is left is to hope. What can we do here? To hope that somehow it will be finished. And the question is how.
I think for me, the interesting thing has been that since Trump's election, you've seen a slight change inside Europe where the UK, France, Scandinavia, the Baltics, Poland have sort of really kind of sprung into action a bit more and sort of starting to, I don't know, act in a way that shows they understand we may be left on our own.
Maybe.
And, you know, in a way, it's like if it means that Europe has to spend more on defense in order to help Ukraine resist Russian aggression, maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it's been a bad thing that Europe's been too reliant on America to protect everybody. And maybe it's important for Europe as a continent to face up to the reality of, you know, what we're dealing with and to kind of, I don't know. I think the problem that all of the European countries have is there is a large degree of I'm scared. And we also see, you know, you see underfunded education systems, underfunded healthcare systems inside your own country in Europe. And then people get annoyed, kind of saying, well, why are we supporting Ukraine? And I think for governments to sell that to people is difficult and it requires time and, you know, ability for people to explain the whole situation of why things will be worse
Yeah.
if Russia is allowed to win. And I think just on even basic levels, like you imagine the refugee crisis that would actually happen if Russia was allowed to take Ukraine, and what, 10 million, 20 million people would leave. You know, it's where are they going to go? Who's going to take them? Who's going to house them? How's that going to work? And I think people need to be talking about that and thinking about that and realizing why it's in the whole of Europe's interest for Ukraine to kind of stand and for Russia to lose. And also just, you
Absolutely.
know, what happens next if Russia wins there. And, you know, the thing that amazes me is just the price of defeating the regime there just seems to get higher all the time. It's like, first of all, it was just Chechnya, then it was a bit of Georgia, then it was Crimea, then it was Donbass, then it was occupying nuclear power stations, then it was full-scale invasion of Ukraine. And it's like,
It will
the longer you wait
never
to,
stop.
it
Yeah.
basically, it doesn't seem to ever stop. You
Yeah.
know, it only stops by being stopped.
Yeah.
And the price gets higher all the time.
And sometimes it seems to me like the European countries are not ready. They are not ready. They do not have necessary number of weapons, though they might have the trained staff, but probably they need to more time to create the weapons.
Yeah.
And at the same time, Russian army and all these plants producing the missiles, they are working with 3 shifts even
Yeah.
at night, so they're preparing for bigger attacks and so on and so forth. And the Europeans, probably they are too relaxed.
Yeah.
They think that it's not their problem, and that's the question. So it might become their problem as well,
It
unfortunately.
could very easily
Yeah,
become their problem,
because
you know.
I'm sure that he has the
Of
plans to
course.
capture. Yes, and maybe that makes the European leaders to make haste before the inauguration of
Yeah.
Trump. I do not know. Maybe
I,
that moves them.
I think that's definitely happening. I think there's been a kind of, and I think once Biden basically kind of gave the green light to the use of ATACMS, there was suddenly this kind of domino effect where other countries sort of went, okay, fine, use our weapons as well. And I don't think that will be like a magic bullet, but I think it will make a big difference. And I think you can already see how panicked people are in Moscow about the fact that there are these targeted attacks on different sites, because suddenly you've got all the crazy talk about we're going to bomb everybody. And, you know, I'm old enough to know that they've been saying this ever since I was a kid. So, I mean, I went back yesterday. I found a press cutting from the 90s of Yeltsin threatening to nuke the UK because of something he didn't like. And it's like, it's been going on forever. It's just some guy kind of.
The history repeats all the time. Yes, and somehow they need to be stopped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, but we can only hope and believe. Yeah, because
Yeah.
actually the price that we pay is too high.
Yeah.
Yes, that the lives of the youngest, of the bravest people of our country. Yes, and the people suffer both on the front line and in the civil cities.
Yeah.
Yes, the civil, and somehow it should be stopped, but I do not know how.
Yeah.
I do not know. So,
Yeah.
but everything that depends on me, on my colleagues, we are doing that. And the teachers, so our school children, our little children, they are forced to have the lessons in the basements, in the shelters. But anyway, the educational process is going on.
Yeah.
Yes. So the economy should work somehow.
Yeah. Yeah.
People
Yeah.
are
Yeah. Yeah.
trying. Yes, I'm not sure whether you've seen that in Odesa, but we still have lots of cafes,
Yeah.
lots of restaurants where people trying to work. Yes, they're giving the jobs to other people, so in order to pay the taxes, to support the army, and so on. So the country is trying to work somehow.
Well,
Yes, people are trying.
when I was in Kiev on the last day I was there before I got the midnight train to Poland, we went to a really kind of weird concert of like this kind of ambient piano music guy with tape effects and things in this old House of Culture art theatre, art cinema in Kiev. And it was just very, very powerful for me to see that people are still doing these kinds of things, you know. And there was like all the young kind of, I don't know, young gender neutral 19-year-olds and things, all the kind of Kiev art students were there. And it was really powerful to see people still having a cultural life and still being able to go out and meet and socialize and drink and create. And I see all of those things as kind of forms of resistance in a way, because it's like we know that there's an enemy trying to destroy our culture and trying to destroy our cities, but within that we're going to carry on creating things and resisting all of that in different ways. And I was talking to one guy outside and he was saying, you know, not everyone's a soldier. Some people are piano players, and piano players do what they can in their own way to kind
Yeah,
of counter the aggression in a different way, you know. And the world needs piano players just as much as it needs soldiers. And I
exactly.
guess it's all everyone doing what they can in that kind of way.
Yeah, yeah, we all have our own fields of responsibility.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah, yeah. I guess it's a good way to look at it.
yes, and
Yeah,
the psychologists also say that we should not stop our lives and to continue living. Yes, we're trying, but we can't live to the fullest anyway. But because at the same time, you always think about those who are in worse conditions,
yeah,
those who are suffering occupation, for example, and so on. But at the same time, there are people who are trying to bring the culture into the society,
yeah,
and we need to support them as well. So
yeah,
we're trying to live. We're trying to live the way it is possible now,
yeah,
probably. But again, everything is unplanned. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
By the way, no, this Tuesday or last Tuesday, I do not remember when it happened. I planned to go to the theater with my students to listen to the orchestra, and it was impossible after what happened on Monday in Odessa. The next day was the day of mourning, and the concert was delayed, not delayed, it was postponed till December, I think. So we have planned, but we didn't manage to attend it because our plans were changed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because of the reason. So, but anyway, we believe that we will meet, that we'll spend time together, that we'll support each other with the real communication.
Yeah.
So
And before we wrap up,
that's what
Anna,
we are trying to do. And the teachers, they're heroes, as well as the people who are trying to work,
yeah,
as well as the businessmen, all the people who are trying to create the jobs for other people. And so we do what we are able to do. Yeah.
and before we wrap up and I let you go, I just wondered if there was anything else you wanted to say or anything else you wanted to share.
Maybe to believe and never stop believing. And moreover, I'm not tired to repeat to everyone I meet and to my students to be prepared. And in September, I always start my lessons now with all the groups with the same. I show them my combat applicable tourniquet, and I explain how to use it, and I tell them that it's absolutely necessary to hold them in your bags.
Yeah.
Whenever you leave the house, hold it with you, and to be always in the comfortable shoes, because you'll have to run away. Hope it will not happen, but just in case. And one day everything will finish anyway. It will be finished. And I hope we'll survive, and we'll kind of cry and celebrate at the same time. I'm just dreaming about that. I visualize the picture of the day when the war is stopped. And the question is on which side of the history we are going to be.
Yeah.
Yes, and anyway, we need to stay humane. We need to be kinder to each other, because all this cruelty that surrounds us, it makes us cruel as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and we are here for some reason on this planet. So let's be kinder, not towards our enemies, of course, but to each other. And we need to be united. We need to do what we are able to do. And everyone who is trying hard, who is working hard for the victory of Ukraine, they're already heroes. And the guys, the women who are fighting on the front lines, those who are fighting now, they are true heroes as well. So we should respect them, whatever they do. And unfortunately, the killed heroes must be always remembered.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll survive. We'll survive. I believe in that, because for some reason we are here now after 1,000 of days of this awful full-scale invasion. The beginning of it.
I have one final question I realized I didn't ask you earlier.
Yeah.
So you said you were in Crimea in 2013, 2012, and you got your brown belt in karate. Did you ever get your black belt?
No.
Ah!
No. After that, I started swimming.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. No, I like trying different species. Yes, of sports. Yes, but now my children, probably they came after me, and they are into tennis, into dance classes, into singing, into swimming. So they want to try everything.
And
When they
your
can't
kids are still
choose,
able to.
yeah.
They're still able to go and play tennis after the
Yeah.
bombing that you experienced. They're still.
Yes, they are. And moreover, we returned to the same court, and it was very, how to say, so it was very important for me to return to that place and to show that I'm not afraid of you. I'm not afraid of anything. So we survived, and we'll continue doing what we are meant to do. So, and I believe that one day some of my children will win Wimbledon. after that.
I hope so. I hope so.
Yeah, so we practice. They train with this with our trainer, our tennis coach Marina, who survived that day, and it's probably it should be like that. Yes, they should train. They should not forget, and
Yeah.
they should not be afraid of tennis after that. And they enjoy playing. I see that they like it. So why should we stop?
Anna, thank you so much for your time and for being such a remarkable, inspiring person.
Oh, thank you.
And
Thank you for all your support. I can't express my gratitude with words for everything that you do, for everything that you say, for how you support us, the teachers. Thank you very much.
yeah.
I, I hope that the next time we meet, it will be the peaceful time
I hope
for
so too.
Ukraine and Europe.
I
Thank you
hope so
very much.
too. And Slava Ukraini.
Героям слава. Thank you.
Take care, yeah?
Thanks. Bye.